I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on vacation, but Andrew Kuo, he does not take any days off. Andrew Kuo, how are you, buddy?
Stupendous, man. Even better than the last time, which was better than the last time. It just keeps on getting better.
You are like music.
I am like food. I am like iPhones. It's just the next one is just better than the last. So I feel cool, man. How do you feel?
I love the new Kuo iOS.
Yes, it fixes all the broken stuff from the last iOS, but still has broken stuff left to fix. So stay tuned for the next one.
It will keep improving.
Yeah.
Each one with slightly fewer glitches.
Yeah, it's like Papa John. After every reveal, stay tuned. There will be more. The Papa John of OSs.
Did he ever do that, his pizza eating mission thing? I felt like maybe COVID disrupted it, but wasn't he supposed to eat something like 500 pies or something? Didn't he make some amazing pizza eating declaration?
Maybe. He disclosed to us that he ate a pizza almost every day, and we were like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, and that's a lot of pizza, man. He does not seem well. What is wrong with the Papa?
Wasn't he canceled for slurs?
Yeah, he got drunk and said something racist, I believe, but now we've forgotten it because we don't really have feelings about Papa John's, to be honest. I don't know. I say we, like royally, as in Twitter. You know, every time I say we, I mean Twitter. But do we care about Papa John? Don't we just want him to be, like, a buffoon?
My take on Papa John is that he sucks. Unlike, say, Guy Fieri, who's
awesome.
Amazing.
Who is becoming more and more popular, sort of like Jason Tatum. Like, not doing stuff, people just, like, declare him better and better. They were trying to rename a city, maybe Columbus, Ohio, into Flavortown.
Yeah, he is a jewel. But Papa John is not one. Papa John is not.
Well, it's funny. You say Guy Fieri is a jewel, and I think he is. But a few years ago, he was on tape, like, kicking his hairstylist out of his limo and, like, berating him with insults. I mean, whatever. I mean, we all have those nights, I guess.
Wow, you have so much tea on him?
It was on TMZ, I think. But, you know, when haven't you berated your hairstylist in your limo and out of your limo after a night of watching basketball games?
Why else would you have your hairdresser in your limo if not to berate them and boot them?
I know. I mean, hairdressers are very valuable people in some lives, right? Like, didn't Iverson travel with his hairdresser or his braid person? Are they going to be in the burger bubble? This is what I want to know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. This is important stuff, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Guy Fieri's whole thing is his hair.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the bubble has full-time staffers in terms of barbers. I don't know how that would work or entourages work. But look, I'm sure the NBA has sorted all of this. They are incredibly, incredibly competent, and they've done so many of these. They have a lot of experience doing pandemic bubbles.
If you're Billy Crystal and you're a super fan, and this is your year for the Clippers, can you be like, yo, I will give you guys $400,000 to be in this bubble? Do you think they would offer that access? They're like, I just want to be in the building, and I won't leave. I won't disrupt the bubble. If I name your price, I'm Billy Crystal. I want to see the Clippers win it all.
Maybe if it was Billy Crystal. I don't think. I mean, James Goldstein might be able to pull it off.
Right.
Here's a question that I have for you. If they said, Andrew Kuo, you can come down to the bubble, you can stay in the hotel, you can go to all the games, you can do whatever you want, but you can't leave, would you go?
Yeah, I'd probably go. Yeah, I'd probably go, depending on what I had to do, which is the lamest thought ever. Yeah, it's once in a lifetime. I'd risk it.
It's hard to say because if you've gone to a lot of basketball games, as great as the sport is, after a while,
This is true. This is
they
very
just
true.
start all like melting together, and you don't feel like watching it.
I mean, being bored of hanging out in the same room as LeBron James is a boredom I'm willing to risk. Do you know what I mean? This is like a once in a lifetime. If I really end up hating, like, Giannis, like, Giannis is so annoying, man. It's just like every day about this yogurt, what is Greek yogurt? Then
Again with the tzatziki sauce.
yeah, white sauce on everything. I don't even. Is it breakfast? Is it lunch? Is it dinner? I have no idea. Is it sweet? Is it savory? Is it neutral? But yeah, that sounds something that would be fun on paper, and then when you're there hanging out with Chris Middleton, maybe not so cool. But you have your phone. I'm fine. I'll just be like, Middleton sucks. I'm gonna look at my phone for an hour.
But also, you can't really choose who you get to hang out with. You can't say, "Oh, I'm just hanging out with Lou Williams. He's great. Love every minute with Lou." You're probably in some common spaces, and it's like, "Oh, here comes Cantor again." Like, you'd probably be stuck around Inez Cantor most of the time.
He seems a little annoying, but I love Turkish food, so I think I would give it a shot. It's delicious. And he can
fair.
eat. We know he can eat. His cheat day videos are epic. Oh, side note, new Steve 1989. The Four
Yes.
Fingers of Death, right?
He got into the glizzy gobbling. Who knew that Steve was such a cloud demon?
My hot take is I wish he ate with more purpose. His pacing is off, man. Have we adapted to Steve 1989? Like,
I mean, are we now acclimated to bunker dining?
right? Like, 7 seconds or less, you adjust to that, right? It's just like a series of adjustments. We've adjusted to his cadence, and now I'm like, let's go, Steve. Eat that shelf-stable bread.
So you think he's not eating it in the cadence of a regular person eating a meal, or is it his presentation of the articles of food that's bothering you here?
His performative aspects are lacking now because other people on YouTube, other food people who eat stuff, have it kind of down better, I think. He's very calming, but almost so calming I fall asleep. It's almost like a Trailblazers game.
I have to say, as much as I like seeing that Steve is alive,
Yeah. Proof of
seeing
life.
how his biceps are growing even in captivity. He's
getting yoked.
He's yoked. He's brolic.
Yeah.
The cutaways are a little too long.
Yep.
I don't need to watch Steve looking at things, and he's kind of mugging for the camera a little bit.
There's a charm to it, but it gets
But he didn't used to as
long.
much. He kind of is now.
He's getting a little bit of stardom, man. He kind of wants a rock in his hands. He's getting that Dion Waiters Island vibe.
But
Still fantastic, though.
he's great, but he isn't dropping them with that much frequency, which
Yo.
is surprising because I figured if he's just bunkered down around his MREs, he'd be gnawing through them. But as it is, I think he's only put out 4 in the last couple of months.
It's load management, man. We know about that. The hot dogs, though, it was a difficult one, and I went back and watched other ones, and the hot dog Four Fingers of Death was very enticing, but I don't know, man. Performance. I'm lacking the performance. Anyway, this is terrible radio talking about a YouTube guy lacking performance, but
Yeah, but we do talk enough about Steve 89 that he's part of the Cookies Hoops extended universe.
he's incredible. He's incredible. Yeah, sign him to a max deal. I'm cool with that. I'm just saying, he could want it more.
Yeah, he might not want it enough.
Yeah. He might be like Michael Jordan, just constantly wanting to quit. Okay, I'll play another season. I'll skip this season. All right, I'll play another season. See,
I don't know. I don't really watch any other food YouTubers except for Steve. So I don't know about these other ones you're referring to. These ones who are apparently putting the god, Steve 1989, Emery.info, to shame.
I mean, there's mega celebrities on there, man, who just eat food for a living. They're pretty incredible. My favorite right now is Mark Wiens, who travels around. He gets like millions of hits on every video, and he's known for his eating reactions, and they're always charming. Like, he kind of goes into like an ecstatic place with every bite, and the best is when he takes a bite of something and he goes, "Oh my god," and he's like, "Yeah, not really for me." It's incredible. But he has been putting up many videos.
Now, on average, how old would you say most of the food that he eats is? Like, is it like, shelf
30
stable
years, 40
from
years.
the War of 1812, anything like that?
1,000-year-old eggs are not 1,000-year-old things, but they look like it. I'm surprised. Do you think Steve 1989 has gotten like some? Are we worried about his health? Is he
No.
healthy?
Yes.
Because some of the stuff he eats, he's like, "Whoa, this is the best thing I've eaten under 30 years."
Yeah, but whatever injuries he would have sustained from this habit probably would have happened a long time ago. I think he's gotten far more cautious than he used to be.
Sort of like Paul Pierce.
Yeah, he pooped his pants a couple times. He learned from it. Now he's kind of just a commentator.
Hey, I like him, man. But I know you're a super fan, so I just want to kind of get some jabs in a little bit,
Well, just watch your mouth. That's all. It's that simple.
I mean, a new Steve video pops up, and I'm watching that, man. There's no way I'm not watching it.
I've been looking for proof of life. I'm not going to lie to you.
His shelf of stuff, he's very close to QAnon, because his shelf of stuff looks very specific, and you can almost draw lines from item to item. For example, the Bruce Willis 7-inch, and it turns into some conspiracy theory stuff, man. I respect it.
Again, just be careful with what you say,
Steve could be listening. The Steves could be listening.
All right, let's move on, because I don't want to get in too deep here. In other news, Steve, I'm sorry. One of your favorite haunts, China Chalet, it's closing its doors. I'm sorry. That's going to change your social life.
Well, it's confusing, right? Because the restaurant closed down, so the people who throw that party, or the multiple people who rent out that space on the weekends, no longer have that place as an option because the restaurant itself closed down. To give our listeners who don't live in New York a little rundown of what the big Double C was, it was a big Chinese restaurant in the middle of nowhere in the financial district on the second floor that you can smoke at. Big room, dining room, and then a dance floor, like a wedding situation. It was set up like a wedding, and I saw some amazing stuff there, and I DJ'd there a ton, but it was a little after my time. I had done the bulk of my partying before that really popped off.
I think there are multiple generations of people who went there that don't really cross over a ton.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I started going there in 07 or 08 maybe.
For sure.
I think that's when I first remember at least going there as knowing of it as China Chalet. Yeah. And then you had promoters who were doing parties with, I don't know, say Zoomers, but people in their early 20s.
Absolutely.
Recently.
Yeah.
But everyone did like it for the same reasons. There were 4 different environments. You come in, there was like a bar right by the door. There was, as you mentioned, like sort of a grand dining room. Mm-hmm. There was a dance floor in the back. There was a little hallway near the restrooms that connected those 2 areas. Mm-hmm. And it really felt like you could find a different style of party within the same building. And that's what made this space really unique and awesome. There are other places where people will do events, like, what is it, the Ukrainian...
National Home.
Yeah. Doesn't have that same feeling. It's one room.
It's an awesome place. I really love cafeteria settings, like bright lights and tables and stuff. So I really liked China Chalet when I first went. It was set up so great, and yeah, there was a after I stopped going as much, it kind of switched over to like new skate, like art bro kind of kids, aspiring painters who are now like 30 and older, and there's like a Zoomer generation that is even better than the previous
Right. So maybe
one.
it's actually really like 3 generations. Because when I was
Yeah.
going there, those first ones were very sort of fashion adjacent.
Yeah, I remember DJing a lot of record release stuff and like opening ceremony parties. I threw a party with Harley and our friends Harley and Cassie a couple times. It didn't quite jump off for me, but it was always really fun. You would have to rent the equipment. There was no built-in stuff. The only thing built in was security ish and bartenders, and they were all Chinese. So it was really interesting because they were all immigrants because they ran a Chinese restaurant, and you could see like people cleaning up the kitchen as you're like setting up to play dubstep.
No, what did you think of the dynamic between, an all Chinese staff and a lot of white kids mostly, but there were different kinds of parties. There were
Yeah.
far more diverse ones, but overall young, kind of like hipstery parties.
I think it's interesting going to a place regularly where you don't really build a kind of friendship with the bartenders, and they were nice, and they would recognize you and hook you up after a couple drinks, but there was a divide. If you go to a club and there's someone your age working behind the bar, there's that interaction too, and a lot of the goings on in a club starts there, and because the bartender knows everything. But this was different, and I always felt like in Chinatown, especially near China Chalet, like people don't really treat Chinese immigrants that graciously as a tradition, and that's okay because like it's kind of a gruff kind of culture. There's no lines, there's no like, hi, how's your, what would you like to eat, I recommend this. They just kind of throw the menu down and look around and wait for you to order. So there's kind of like a confrontational service to customer kind of vibe, and that was no different at China Chalet to a degree. But I'm just kind of manufacturing into my head because I think what I was missing was like the deep kind of friendships between bartenders and bar revelers, and that just never happened there. But it was a pop-up. People would book it. The last time I was there, I saw Slow Tie, which was amazing. But does the Slow Tie party have anything to do with the China Chalet staff? Like, no.
No,
The label
the
just
last
rented
time
it.
I was there was for a Telfar after party after one of his shows. Again, to your point,
No.
there was no interaction between
Yeah.
those two elements.
I mean, I think what we always talk about, defund whist, but we're just talking about our youth being like, oh, I can't believe China Chalet was closed. I haven't been in years, but I had great times. I'm like, that's totally fair. But like, to me, the place wasn't as valuable. The people throwing the party are valuable, and hopefully like the Zoomers who are still into it can go to Ridgewood and like create a new version of that.
I've heard that Beverly's, the bar on Essex Street, might be closing as well. If maybe that's not true, but if so, it would be another place that was popular with more or less the same crowd.
Yeah, art bros, skaters, that kind of rap, a lot of rap getting played there. Beverly's was kind of cool. It was really narrow, bright. Oh, I just can feel the hangover now. I've only been there a couple times, but it was cool.
But whether they may be closing or not, but we are now starting to look at the casualties within nightlife world, and that doesn't even include places that are like clubs.
Yeah, the club
This
clubs
may
have
be
to
happening
over.
to China Chalet because of the food side, but it also could be nightlife. Who knows how they balance their books?
I mean, China Chalet made a lot of money throwing those parties, so I'm sure not having those parties around was at least one of the daggers, right?
I'm sure. But so what I've been thinking about is how badly should we be mourning these places? And by that, I don't mean we should fully defund whist. I mean, it's fair to say that sucks. I like that place. I have good memories there. That's a bummer that it will not exist anymore. I agree with that. But are we also just talking about supply and demand? That it makes sense that nightlife places are going to close right now. You can't put people in them. And that might continue for a year. It might continue for 18 months. We have no idea. And like, how would a bar or a club survive right now? And maybe we can give it them their proper due if they have to succumb to this. But we also, I guess, can look maybe more optimistically towards the future and say, when there's a vaccine and things can go back to normal, if hopefully that occurs, then there will be a market for these places and new ones will open up and these same operators will figure things out and we'll have a new crop of places to create memories and future generations will have that same opportunity.
I agree with all of that. It's unsustainable now. Like, I think a gem spa a little bit. Gem Spa was a little convenience shop on St. Mark's that sold cigarettes and made most of their money on cigarettes before everyone stopped smoking, and magazines and egg creams and some candy here and there. And people have been trying to save it because it was a punk hangout back when like the Talking Heads used to hang out. But now it's like an NYU campus and they're going out of business. And people online tried their hardest to save that place. Like streetwear people like made T-shirts like "Save Gem Spa," and it was so clear the Gem Spa guys were like, "We're done, man. There's no market for us here." It's like, what are we gonna do? Sell T-shirts? We sell cigarettes and vape stuff, you know. And same with the diners. Like, save the diners. I'm like, we don't go to diners anymore. And I think nightlife is the most organic thing of all of these things, and it can take its form really quickly and with not a lot of money or commitment. So I'm not worried about nightlife at all. I'm worried about everyone staying healthy until we get this damn vaccine and if it works. So I agree. Like, if you were going to open a club in February or March or April, like, this is the worst time, and I hope you got that PPP or something. But there is literally no demand for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt about the phase 3 opting not to open up restaurants. There was no demand for that. No one in New York City wants to be in a restaurant right now. Inside, yeah. No one does. And honestly, I think some of these streets look lovely with the added outdoor seating. It looks really nice. And eliminating cars from some of those and recreating, you know, an element or a replica of what we liked about the city in public view is something that when you see it, you don't really think you want to go back to everything being indoors anyway.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, some places do a really great job, man. Some lights. It's like when you go to a different country, you don't realize what you don't have in New York City until you leave.
That's a better way of putting it, because and I was driving out. I grabbed some dinner from Little Pepper, one of our favorite Sichuan spots.
Nice.
In deep Queens.
So jealous.
And driving through some of those little streets and seeing the restaurants, you know, not even just the ones in Manhattan, not just, you know, Raoul's, but all over the place. And in deep Queens, that restaurants had built their outdoor seating with plants and flowers and people were outside. And you're like, this is nice to see everyone making the best of it.
Mm-hmm. Did you hear that factoid? Like, people built their outdoor wooden like enclosures, and New York State forgot to tell them they would fine them if the outermost barrier wasn't 18 inches. And they're like, this is going to cost us an entire night's of profits. And they're like, sorry, we just dropped that on you. I'm like, can you guys do anything? You have nothing else to do except have someone be clear and state the rules of this thing. It's very frustrating. I feel for every restaurant trying to make this work, because I don't know if these numbers are going to add up.
No idea how the math works. I mean, but that at least is something you can look at and say, it's in the restaurant world flattening the curve. Mm-hmm. It's keeping the lights on and money coming in, maybe enough to pay some rent. Mm-hmm. While even if you're taking out more debt, it's like kicking the can. All right, we can sort of stay open. We can have 20 tables going instead of 50. We can do a quarter of the money or a third. We're still failing, but we're failing slower.
I mean, the big thing is like there's no tourists, and the tourist economy floats on many of these restaurants, especially these like red sauce places. Like when you go in to eat somewhere on a Saturday or a Friday and it's crowded, half the room doesn't live in New York City. And I don't know how we're going to do this. It's like we're not talking about the right things ever. It's like, you know, we're talking about people want cops to stop killing black people. The flags. And I'm like, oh, we're talking about flags again.
But statues.
Yeah. It's like, you know, with food, we're not talking about like, we're talking about an unsustainable math equation. And having beautiful lights and on the street stuff is great. But, you know, we've been screaming about this since this all started. Like, there needs to be government help that we don't see. Being like, you guys don't have to pay mortgage or rent, or here's a ton of money that is forgivable. Something more than what we got, because the EIDLs are kind of sketchy. The PPPs, your boy Jared Kushner got a bunch of those PPPs, which is fine as long as everyone gets them. But like, it's a mess out there, man.
One thing that you said kind of makes sense to me, though. And New York City, the sustainability of the restaurant culture that it had was propped up in many ways by tourism, especially on the upper end. And it's wild when you think of the cost of running a restaurant, the cost of eating there, and kind of how much of a pain in the ass restaurants are in New York City outside of, you know, a handful.
It is the hardest industry.
Like there's a real binary, right? It's like there's no room to exist as a okay, affordable restaurant. You're either expensive and popular, or you're super cheap, fast casual. There's not like a whole lot of middle ground.
Yeah, and then you got to be the best version of that. I mean, this is why we figured out, me and you, why there's no good tacos in New York, right? Or there's few good tacos. Because to express this very simple, complicated thing to eat, you cannot have the overhead that New York City makes you commit to serve these things, which is like brick and mortar, insurance for your staff, like immigration papers, you know, like all this stuff is too tricky. So you don't have the people with the unique points of view being like, I just make like beef tacos, or I only make al pastor, you know. And we don't have that culture in New York, and it sucks because it's the spice of life, baby.
So speaking of these worst places in New York,
Nice.
there was a thread going around on Twitter where someone, I don't know who he was, I forget, but I didn't know him personally. They
Just say
we started posting up the worst places in New York. But on his list, he had a couple ones that were really odd to me. And
which
one
is
of those,
why he went viral, which is clever. He threw a monkey wrench in there. It was a very simple tweet, but he threw in something controversial.
I don't know, though. I don't think they were controversial. They were just weird.
But Grand Army Plaza was trending. And I was like, why is Grand Army Plaza trending? Was
That
there
is-
something bad there, you know? I thought there was a shooting or something.
I mean, I guess that's true. But I don't know why it went viral, other than maybe it was those oddities. But Grand Army Plaza was just strange to me. It's an inconvenient place to walk, but it has never
It's pretty beautiful. I don't know.
Well, it's got the farmer's market there. You can go into the museum or Prospect Park from there. It just never struck me as anything worth caring about, except that it is annoying to walk around because there's a bunch of cars.
Like Columbus Circle. It's a looping. It takes forever. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's annoying to walk around. But, like, the worst place in New York, I guess.
Shout out to the DMV that didn't make many lists. They kind of got their shit together.
I don't know. Last time I went to the DMV, it was not that bad.
Yeah, me the same. This year, not that bad.
But Union Pool made the list, and that baffled me.
I love
So Union
yeah.
Pool is a bar in Williamsburg that came to prominence kind of as a cool kid spot during the heyday of Williamsburg. Then it became a place where sort of bridge and tunnel-y people would mix with that crowd on the weekends. Then it sort of just became a music venue and kind of a regular Williamsburg bar, I guess. And maybe 3 years ago or so, it kind of went viral again because I think New York Magazine or something wrote an article about Union Pool and how it was kind of like the hipster, druggy hookup spot, like the meat market of the noughts or something. But why would that be on the list? I just don't get it. I didn't get what reference point he was trying to hit.
Well, there was this is all personal, like whoever's saying this stuff, right? Because he probably had a bad time during the heyday of Union Pool, which was, it kind of felt like the Holotronics epicenter of New York. You know, Holotronics is a Philly, kind of a Philly thing, Baltimore, but it had a lot of the markings of what people think of hipster culture in Williamsburg, right? Like the shade sunglasses, bright colors, young people, a lot of white people.
Taco truck,
day drinking. There was a little wading pool. It was very like Cobra Snake fodder for like photos and pre-Instagram. And I think people, when they talk about Williamsburg, like those hipster years, which I think are kind of amazing years, they think of Union Pool maybe. And
because there was a resentment from kind of like, I don't know what you'd call their community, but like of Gawker readers, kind of. There was like an irritation towards like hipster Williamsburg. I don't know if it was that group of people was older or didn't feel included, but there was definitely like a sort of snotty bitterness towards sort of like the Vice and like Union Pool, Williamsburg, North Brooklyn scene. Like it was distinctly like irritating to like a certain kind of Park Slope-ish like literary type.
And it was unique, right? Because I think it's a tradition for older generations to think younger generations are bullshit. But this was different because this was the brightness of the internet and kind of the internet kind of forming itself in real time with all this stuff happening in Williamsburg. And you talk about Vice, and Vice was a physical magazine, but it quickly turned into like a multimedia thing. And then MySpace, probably that was the era, maybe post Friendster, and as Facebook was taking off. So there's all these new ideas and new technologies with like iPods and streaming music, and it created new sounds and new looks and new attitudes. That was like a distinct jump than the usual evolution, right?
Yeah, and what I'm speaking about is kind of the normie resentment towards it. But because of the internet, they were aware of those things.
Yeah.
Where typically they might, pre-internet, had no idea it was even happening. They would have just seen someone wearing something funny. Right. But because they were online, they were able to hear about these things and read about these things and actively dislike them with a sense of actual awareness.
Yeah. Did you hear that Trump is thinking about outlawing TikTok?
Is this a anti-China measure?
Mm-hmm. It's like a play on his part because TikTok is generating a lot of revenue and data for China. So he's claiming like we don't want to give our data to China because data is power. But really what he's doing is just trying to cut off like oxygen to China in all the different ways. What I think is interesting here, to your point about Union Pool and the way to kind of eavesdrop onto a culture forming itself in real time, is like old people not understanding what young people are up to as a tradition. But like if we end TikTok, we're like cutting off a huge part of like the cultural part of our world right now. That would be a little bit of a tragedy, I think.
It's also a bit different because when that like Vice, Fader, hipster stuff was first rising up in Williamsburg, at Union Pool, at Daddy's, check cashing.
Daddy's was awesome.
Supreme Trading, whatever, all those spots in the, mid 2000s that were around Williamsburg and
Sweetwater.
Sweetwater.
Galapagos.
I mean, we can just keep naming them, right? Like Volume, Studio B.
Spot.
But back to the city.
Oh, my bad.
Plaid.
Yeah.
We're forgetting Lux. That was like the key one.
Oh man, yeah, a trash bar.
Yep. So, but that whole era was not celebrated in the way that you kind of see older millennials being like, "Oh, the TikTok youth will save us. The Zoomers are the best." There's this weird cheerleading, which I'm not opposed to. I don't think there should be really intergenerational beef, but it's different. No one was saying these hipsters are awesome. No one was rooting for the hipsters. The hipsters will save us. American Apparel is going to change the world.
But we weren't saying it, but we were acting like it because we were buying American Apparel stuff. We were going to see all these bands that hipsters kind of created vibes for. We were going to Williamsburg, and now hipsters can't be in Williamsburg because, like you said, the Bridge and Tunnel people not only went to Union Pool, they live near Union Pool.
No, they moved into the condos.
Yes, it belongs to them now. So like we never said like hipsters are great, but we certainly acted like it.
So just to bring it full circle back to the worst place in New York being Union Pool, I'm still mystified. Is it a commentary on disliking hipster culture? Is it a commentary on gentrification and Bridge and Tunnel infiltrating hipster culture? Is it a commentary on the current status of Williamsburg? Because Union Pool is just, at this point, a fairly good music venue and a normal ass bar.
Oh, I got love for Union Pool, man. I think that's one of the great bars.
Same.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Like, you want an objectionable bar, go to any of them.
Yeah.
Along like Murray Hill or in the East Village on a weekend. Like, Union Pool doesn't even register to me as a quote bad bar.
It's closer to being one of the best places in New York than the worst places, right? I would expect to see it on the
that
top,
bell
right?
curve. It is certainly on the good side.
Yeah. But we're douchebags, so like it's hard to tell, right? Like,
But I don't even think it's like that anymore. It's not even cool. It's just a bar.
right. It's been like, it's like complaining about Mr. Chow's, like, oh, just like it's too cool, Mr. Chow's.
I'm so sick of all these cool kids from 15 years ago. Like, who hurt you, dog?
Yeah, Bungalow 8, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I mean,
Do you have any worse spots in New York? I don't really even have any.
well, I was thinking like the worst parts of my day, the only times I think about moving away from New York is subway rides. So I'm just like, yo, in your normal routine, the most annoying subway ride is punishing, and it's a reason to move up to the Hudson, man.
The Hudson.
The Hudson.
The Hudson. As in the highway. You know, if I'm going to pick the worst place in New York, I think someone mentioned it in that mix there. It might have been, was it him? I don't know. But there's one subway station around Columbus Circle that really is terrible. There's one that has this corridor. I don't know if it's still the case, just like I don't know if this person has gone to Union Pool in the last 15 years. There was one corridor that smelled like something dead. And it was always dripping water from the ceiling.
Oh, my God.
And that, to me, was like the embodiment of the worst place in New York. It was hot and sweaty with dripping water, and it stunk, and you had to go through it on the way to work and on the way back from work if you were transferring there. And that, to me, was like, that's the worst. Yeah. It had all those things that you're talking about. It was stinky and hot and gross, but also part of the most excruciating part of your schedule.
I just watched Bringing Out the Dead again. It's a pretty incredible movie, and it got me thinking about how people who don't live in New York must see think New York looks like. You know, I don't know if you've been getting these calls like in the last month, but people like who don't live here, my relatives say like, it's a war zone over there. Be careful. Don't leave your house. And I'm like, it's fine. It's totally okay, you know? But Bringing Out the Dead portrays like Hell's Kitchen as like this steamy, disgusting, heroin-filled, like sirens blaring, sepia-toned, like a boiling pot. And it is that, you know, in July and August. And I wish our city kind of invested in a little bit of like lightness. I wish your boy BDB, Bill de Blasio, would like clean up these subways a little bit, or like make them on time, or like help people who need help. Just like these little things that societies do. Because it doesn't have to be this way, because Bringing Out the Dead came out 20 years ago and it's still the same. And it was about a time way before it came out. And I don't want to go back to Times Square when I was a kid before. I mean, it's not super fun now, but a lot of New York hasn't changed in 30 or 40 years. Union Pool certainly has, but that subway you're talking about has not, which is odd.
I can't really think of another worse place in New York. There are bars that I don't like, but then I wouldn't go to them.
I have a tough...
So I don't have any strong feelings about them.
Like a Containers Plus next to a Modell's, next to a Olive Garden. Like, those are really tough zones for me. I really hate them. I really hate being in Whole Foods, some Whole Foods. I think that's pure misery sometimes. But that's not even close.
I mean, I would put, you know, the area where I used to live in Williamsburg as like my least favorite area. Like, I hate it over there. It sucks. But it's all, you know, it's like, but it's also attached to personal things. But that's why those, as in, I didn't like how the neighborhood changed and it became awful, and I happened to live there, so it was magnified. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the beauty of these lists, right? Mm-hmm. It's all inflected with your personal experience.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's parts in Chinatown where you just have to step over human feces, and it's just not clean, that I feel could be a lot better.
So the counterweight thread to the one about the worst places in New York was people whose WIST has not been defunded discussing what they missed. And of course this triggered me.
Because you want to abolish WIST.
Defund and abolish WIST. Disarm WIST. There were replies like, sitting with my friends in the park. I'm like, is this about COVID? Or did you move? Like, what are we doing here? Other ones, walking around the East Village on a Sunday. Like, East Village still there. Sundays available once a week. I'm just trying to get, are we now moving towards general WIST? Like, some of them were very valid. Oh, I miss being at Blue Ribbon eating oysters at 2 a.m. Like, word. Yeah, that's awesome. Into that.
Nice.
Can't do that now. No seafood towers. I mean, maybe some places, but harder to get a 2 a.m. seafood tower these days.
Damn near impossible, I'd say.
Walking around New York City as long as I can until my feet are weary, and then having a coffee. I mean, you do you have feet?
You got on my case for this like a few months ago when I was like, I just want to have a piece of pizza. And you're like, go and have pizza. I'm like, I want to do my laundry. And you were like, do your freaking laundry. So I will take the side of the WIST here. And I'm kind of with you on this, but let's do this. I believe there's certain things you cannot unsee. So it has a lot to do with the idea of PTSD. And you know, I remember personally one time I was going through some harsh stuff and I was like, I just want to watch a basketball game and enjoy my horrible Knicks team and just get back to that point. And, you know, time lurches on and that horrible stuff kind of dissipated. And I went and I watched the Knicks and I'm like, I've changed. I can't go back. Like, I'm damaged. I cannot unsee the things I've seen. So I have to change this. And I think when people emote like that on Twitter, I can kind of get with it because I cannot unsee things like 9/11 or 17,000 people dying of a virus in our city or losing my job during this time. All these things that people go through, or having someone get sick, but not sick. Are you sick? I don't know. And then when they say, like, I miss walking down a very plain street that you can walk down on today, what they're saying is it's changed forever.
I get that. That makes sense. And that's a rational, or it's more of an irrational.
Yes, it doesn't make sense, but
It's it's a sensible explanation for an irrational take.
Right.
Because as someone who takes the side of, like, how can we try to make the best of this? My response has generally been to, like, try to reintegrate safest parts of normalcy that we can. But there also are people who have, much like a turtle, seem to really retract their head.
Carmelo.
In a way, Fonzie Wells, in a way that
Van Exel. Jason Terry. I'm sorry.
But they've retracted their turtle head in a way that they've almost moved out of New York despite still being here.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You know, some people have left and they went up to the Hudson or the Beacon or the Rhinebeck, and they're kind of up there in the Catskill. And they're looking down at the city like, I don't know, should I come back? And they haven't even driven back to look at their apartments. They're just out. They don't know when they're coming back. They don't know what New York is even like. They're just out. And I feel like there's people who stayed because they didn't have a better option, like most of us didn't.
Yeah.
And they've kind of retracted into their apartments. And they haven't left their neighborhood. They haven't moved around at all. They're still just, like, darting out to go to the store and then going back home. And I have friends who have done this. And I'm not knocking it, because being safe is being safe. And there's no problem. Like, it's for the greater good. Cool. I just don't know. I guess what I'm trying to get to is your point before about not being able to unsee certain things. How do you get back to some sense of normalcy or engaging with the world? Because we're not going to get rid of COVID 100% for a while, if ever. For a while. So, like, what New York is doing, let's forget about the rest of America for a second. What New York is doing is parallel to what we're seeing virtually everywhere that has managed to tamper down coronavirus down to somewhat manageable levels, even though it still exists and is around. But everyone is doing the same thing. This is the playbook around the globe.
Yep.
So if you're saying, nah, I'm just inside. I'm an inside guy. I'm Denzel Washington in The Inside Man. How do you want things to proceed? Are you just waiting longer? Is it a comfort level? Or is there another way that you want, say, New York or London or any of these places that are trying to open up gradually to proceed?
I mean, this is tough because I'm kind of all for phase 2, but kind of against phase 2. And this thing is not a machine that produces a result. It's not something that produces something. So this is kind of like mental gymnastics a little bit. COVID happened to our society, and it's just happening. It's not like, well, I turned on the vacuum, it sucks up dust, right? It's like, no, we don't know what turning on the vacuum will do.
There is an element of the unknown for sure, but it is a bit like a machine. We don't know how it works exactly, and we're trying to figure that out, but it is a bit like a machine, right? It doesn't have morals. It doesn't say, ha, the beach. Look at them out there having fun, instead of only going to the supermarket for essentials. Time to bear down on some bronzed hindquarters. Like, it is kind of a machine. It just looks for respiratory systems to invade.
But this is a very stony conversation. Machines have feelings because they're made by us because we have feelings. So machines, I think, the whole genre of sci-fi, right? Machines inherently reflect us. So they function emotionally. in my opinion. A virus does not. A virus is just biologically in existence. And I think, what I think about sometimes is like, I said this on Twitter, like, for example, if all of a sudden spicy food killed 2 or 3 people in America every month, we would stop eating spicy food, right? As a community, we'd be like, okay, no one eats spicy food until we figure out why these 2 people that aren't related to each other died eating flaming hot Cheetos, right?
No, though, right? Because people die of alcohol poisoning all the time.
But we love alcohol. So it's like what we're doing is we're putting feelings into this because we love certain things like going out and seeing our friends and living our lives and being humans because we are all those things and we like all those things. But the principles of this kind of are way stonier. They're almost at the base level of biology. And to create even phases is ridiculous. Like, phases don't matter here. To treat it, yeah, we can like kind of box it in. We can try. Science works. Vaccines work, etc. Like all these things happen. But I think it's odd to... I'll rephrase that. It makes all the sense in the world to downplay it, which we're doing. But the people who are responsible for addressing this, I hope, are not downplaying it. I hope, like Fauci has kind of come through for us. Every time we talk to him, no lies, right? He's like, this is bad. We just have to get through it. There will be deaths. You guys aren't doing the right thing. What can we do? What
is your objection to phase 2? Just in terms of
I don't think
saying,
we're ready. I don't know.
When would we be ready?
There is no when. This is what I mean. Like, everyone's be like, okay, when is a triangle going to appear in a Phil Jackson Knicks team? It's like, well, it's an idea. There is no physical triangle. It's like, no. 3 points is a triangle. It's like, yes, but no. Like, we're trying to put something in a box, being like, well, when is phase 2? Like, forget about the idea of phase 2.
But is this a quo slippery slope?
Well, life is a slippery
you're
slope,
saying,
right?
If coronavirus is in existence, which it is, and is somewhere around in society, which is going to be very difficult to get rid of, and if that is the case, then you can never adjust back from, say, lockdown. Like, is that ultimately
until a vaccine?
What you're saying.
So in an ideal world, I think, which is not perfect.
But I'm saying in reality, and I know there are parts that are, oh, well, what about the economics? And I'm not even really that concerned about the economics. I'm more saying, to paraphrase your boy Trump, like, I think we have to live with it to some degree. Now, the way that I'm willing to live with it is not the same as that, like, the Republican Party is willing to live with it.
Talk about a slippery slope. That is the ultimate, because what does that mean?
Well,
live with
I
the
think
consequences?
the ultimate is saying is that if it exists, you have to be on lockdown forever until there's a vaccine, which may not be possible. That to me is like the ultimate slippery slope.
No, that is just a thing. There is no slope there. It's just like, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but that is literally no slope. It's stay in until we have a cure.
But you don't
which
even
we can't
believe
do
that.
Well, I don't think it's possible.
But I'm saying you don't actually believe that. You don't think we should really still be on lockdown, despite the fact that 1% of people who are being tested, under 1% of people who are being tested because I think they have it in New York City are positive.
I don't think it's possible.
Like that, but I'm saying, even if it was, that doesn't make sense.
I don't think it's possible. I think it makes sense.
Well, in other COVID news, Bradley Beal is out of the bubble. Dinwiddie tested positive a second time. He's out of the bubble. But teams are already going there.
I know it's happening.
Your boy Troy Daniels posted up, I believe, his first meal in the bubble. It looked a bit like airline food. The menu listing itself was more palatable than how it appeared. There was a lot of small containers. It was a lot of little individual ingredients that were to be wrapped together. Here's the menu for Tuesday, July 7th. Got the NBA logo right on the top. Fresh garden greens, arugula, watermelon, pickled red onions, goat cheese with raspberry vinaigrette, tomato and mozzarella,
Sounds nice.
Italian grilled chicken with natural juice, white fish with tomato and dill topping, Parmesan polenta with sun-dried tomatoes, pasta with impossible bolognese sauce, roasted summer vegetables. All sounds pretty good. Did not look great on the tray.
Some Firefest shit.
Wasn't that bad, but also not that far off.
Yeah.
It had one of those like really sad like buns wrapped in cellophane that you get on an airplane. You know when you get on a plane and they give you a meal and it's all carbs?
Yeah. Pasta, bread, crackers.
It's like pasta with bread and crackers and a bun on the side.
Yeah, I know.
What's your dessert? A mini pie.
I need that energy for that Harry Potter marathon I'm going to have to consume on the way to
If you stack them all.
different time zone.
Are these guys going to look at that post and be like, wait a minute. I have $120 million in the bank. You want me to go live in a hotel room and eat Delta Comfort Plus meals? I don't know, man.
It's crazy, especially considering these guys are like finely tuned machines, for lack of a better word. And like we know so much about biometrics and we have not prepared better than this. It's like, oh yeah, every team can bring a team of trainers and Whole Foods is going to sponsor the whole thing. And their chefs are going to create meals from Whole Foods. I mean, if Top Chef can do it, the NBA can do it. There's money involved, right? And I'm surprised that like they don't have anybody who takes care of these things. This is going to be hilarious. I hope they do kind of like a real world sideshow, like the Real Housewives, but just these dudes sampling bad foods and getting really bored of each other. Have you seen the courts? It's amazing. Like,
That's just for the practice, or is that where the games are going to be?
I think that's the games. And
I'm not sure.
I
Because they're not going to do games right next to each other, right? Or I guess you would have to.
I hope they
I could be
do.
wrong. I still assume this whole thing is just like a game of chicken, so all of their details don't exist until I actually see them.
Sort of like the Cookies Classic. It was all fun and games until it was actually happening. I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. There's like 7 games going on at once,
All right.
and people fighting.
All right, the NBA season is starting. It looks like Quo and Ben are reffing and scorekeeping.
Yeah, and creating brackets and
And Doe and Lucian.
yeah, and refilling water jugs, and selling merch and doling out chicken biscuits. Shout out
And then
to
you've got
Plaza
the
Fest.
whole issue of Adam Silver, the undercover boss, trying to get some games in for the Brooklyn Nets.
Who maybe are like a crew of 6 now. Your boy Torian Prince is ill and maybe can't make it or will not make it. So we're dealing with like, okay, let's go down the list of players, Nets players who can't make it. Keith Van Horn. It just goes
Okay,
on.
let's see who. All right, well, who's going to be there? Joe Harris, Joe Hairless. No, that's Adam Silver.
Guys, I'm your boss. It's like, oh, what a tearjerker.
Oh man. Sorry, I criticized you for going 2 of 17, but you were trying really hard out there, really busting your hump.
Are there enough Jamal Crawfords to fill out every roster? Because he's a walking bucket, man.
That guy, he is an ambulatory basin.
He is a mobile pot. I don't know. I tried. But
That guy is a modular urn.
that guy is an unidentified flying urn.
Vat.
That. Yeah, every 2 days, as we describe all these teams who are losing players going into the Burger Bubble and the Checkers Challenge, there has to be a trending Jamal Crawford thing on Twitter where he's a walking bucket and he scored 51 points in his last game. Until you look closer, and he was 18 for 30, and now he's currently 40 years old. I mean, can we just give him a break? I know he wants to play. He's very vocal. But, like, there's a reason why, like...
Well, of course, he was very bad in Phoenix. He hasn't been good in a few years, and he's now a year older and hasn't played. Teams would be better suited, I would guess, going and finding anyone who was in the G League and played well and signing them instead. Or any number of guys who are like on the fringes of the NBA who are just floating around.
Yo, Ty Lawson's 30. I don't know why he was ousted from the league. I'm sure he's like some sort of annoying dude. But like, Jeremy Lin is out there. Anthony Randolph will forever be 26 to me. I don't know how old he is now, but I think he's only like 32 years old. Your boy Roy Hibbert can suit it up. But I think scoring really captures people's imagination. So it's just like, tell me one team that can't use 51 points. And I'm like, many teams.
Dan Marley is just sitting around out there. A lifetime career 36% shooter, and you're telling me Dan Marley can't make one of these bubble teams?
Danny Ainge can come back from death and suit it up and hit 30% from three right now.
Well, in sad news, it turns out that Magic Johnson doesn't write his own tweets.
That's disappointing. It's crushing, man. Because he's one of the best tweeters alive. Let's be real, right? Like, it's just pure 100% joy from that account.
So I guess he dictates them. So in some sense, he is composing them and writing them, but someone else is texting them. It does take the authenticity out of it. I like the idea of Magic pawing at his phone to say both teams played hard.
It's a Twitter middleman.
Oh, I hate a middleman, especially. It's a Twitter middleman on a middleman network.
The middleman on the middleman platform, on the middleman subway platform. I don't know. I still like it. Let's see. Let's workshop a Magic bubble.
Okay. I'll do the tweet, but can you write this down as we do this?
Clackety
Okay,
clack.
you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Zion Williamson is a great young player, and I look forward to watching him for years. You got that?
Yes.
Okay, so
I'm going to translate that to Jason Tatum is a great young player, and I look forward to watching him win multiple MVPs in one single season. Oof. Amazing.
Wait. Read that back. The part about now is great contextualized here? I'm Magic. Is it great like myself, Irvin Johnson, or Larry Bird?
Wow.
Is it great like Alexander the Great? Or am I saying he's only great for being young?
Wow.
Is that now shifting towards derogatory that he's good for a young guy? Let's just get rid of great. Zion Williamson is a young player. Okay, that's good. That I look forward to watching for years. The 4 years part, we got to get rid of that. That's also speculative. Zion Williamson is a young player I look forward to watching. That's a banger. Smash send.
It's just gonna go viral. No ratioing that tweet.
Imagine if they spruce them up. Like they add adjectives to what he's normally doing.
I think I told you this story, right? Like, I believe it was Starlee Kind from This American Life, previously of This American Life. She gave a talk about how she was Amari Stoudemire's ghost tweeter, and she had a schedule next to her computer, and she would tweet, but the Knicks would call her and be like, okay, he's more stoic than that. He's not as emotional, and he wouldn't be tweeting before a game because he has to focus. But an hour after the game, yeah, you can send that tweet. And she was like, yeah, I don't know who this is, so like whatever. So they would give her Amari's like vibe and his schedule, and she would just have to interpret what he would do on Twitter. She said it was a really fun job.
I've ghostwritten a couple athlete tweets.
Can you spill the beans? Can you?
No.
Come on.
No, they're not fun ones. They're like for like
Tony
years ago
Roden.
for like product stuff.
Oh,
But it'd be
yeah.
like write this tweet in their voice, and then we'll give it to that player, and then they'll edit it how they want to, and then they'll tweet it out like their own version or your version. Typically, they would just tweet the same version.
In the celebrity universe, including the NBA, who would you most want to tweet for?
I don't know. I mean,
Would it be JoJo?
nah, because I wouldn't want to tweet for anybody.
I mean, come on. Pick one. I got Jason Alexander. I think that would be fun. Happy
So
Festivus.
you're gonna write the tweets that Jason Alexander posts.
I would love to. I'd be like, Happy Festivus. I stand with Hong Kong. You know, all the Seinfeld tropes.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of that. Anyone who
Ow.
I would want to actually tweet for, because I would like to tweet now for Andre Drummond to try to dismantle his apparent affinity for Elon Musk. If I can take the reins on that project, I would do it.
Can I just ask a bunch of blank questions without much thought behind them? Do you hate Elon Musk?
Hate is kind of the wrong word. I dislike him, but I find him a compelling, villainous modern character.
I love him quite a bit, and I'm trying to figure out why people hate him so much. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this, because he's goofy, and he's like whatever corny means to you. He is very, very wealthy, which is kind of like a setback a little bit vibe-wise, but he's awesome. Like, isn't this who we want to have this influence?
Elon Musk?
I think his ideas are awesome. Like, I'm going to go to outer space. I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to make electric cars. I'm like, it's fine with me. Like, I'm going to create batteries that'll generate power for houses. I'm like, that sounds cool. Why do people hate him? Like, I'm asking, honestly.
Because his personality is revolting.
Yeah, he's abrasive and
He's
like
a
megalomaniac.
He's a bullying, cretinous billionaire who is incredibly juvenile and picks fights with people. I mean, he's just utterly repulsive.
I mean, he says things that makes his board shudder, and he wields the power to make that stock kind of bounce around. But compared to the other billionaire CEOs, like, comparatively, and I don't know much about that world, and I should, because I don't think we look up enough. Like, we're going after Elon Musk, and I'm like, we were onto something with the Koch brothers, and we kind of lost steam because it was too boring, like a Trailblazers game.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
the Celestial Seasonings bear over here, just tucking into my sleepy time tea. Yeah, I think in the world of these guys, like Tillman for Tita, people like this, like, I feel like Elon Musk and Vivek Ranadive are like awesome, and
I mean, I find Musk. I mean, the word "awesome" just is like stunning to have it associated with Elon Musk. I'm like, that dude is the worst.
I mean,
but it's because he makes himself available
right.
to be seen in that way. And you're right. You know, the DeVos family, who are some of the most wretched ghouls in America,
Yeah.
they're not public as ownership of like the Orlando Magic
Right.
at this point.
Right.
You know, you just don't see them. And that still goes with someone like Dan Gilbert. Like, do I find Elon Musk worse than Dan Gilbert? Sure, because Elon Musk puts himself into my face via Twitter and news and people talking about him in ways that other horrific billionaires don't do.
Yes. Yeah. He is the villain. He took his talents to Twitter.
Like, is Thiel worse than Musk? Sure, but Thiel's not on Twitter and cracking like stupid 69 420 jokes.
Yeah. It's like Mark Cuban gets a ton of hate, and because he's in our faces and he has a hit TV show, and he's very visible in basketball games. But I'm like, I kind of think he's great. I really like Mark Cuban, and I don't agree with the totality of his opinions, but like in the world of those guys with that money and that influence, I'm like, Mark Cuban's someone I enjoy.
I don't mind Mark Cuban, despite him calling me clueless several times.
You went after him for Nerlens, though, so he had to defend him. He bared his fangs.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
I wasn't upset about that in the least.
But it was cool that he interacted with you. You know, like, this is what I'm saying, right? I'm sure if you met him,
Don't
he'd be
cross Nerlens.
Yeah, I'm sure if you met him, he'd be like, "Oh, you really got under my skin, man." I'm like, because that's how he acts on Shark Tank, you know. I don't know, like.
No, I don't have a problem with Mark Cuban in that way. I just find Musk just vile in every sense.
Oh man, his whole thing with Grimes, like I think they're so interesting, and I don't agree with all of Musk's ideas at all, but I love enough of them, and I think they're so interesting. I don't know. The space thing worked. It's crazy.
I there's nothing about him that I find like really impressive. It's more that he's just a character in our like daily Twitter carousel. Well, the little green hand reared its claw again today when Joel Embiid of the Sixers, was discussing mostly his hesitation about going down to the burger bubble, but also talked about, my team can go through me, I can carry the team, blah, blah, blah. And of course, that was posed in the headlines as the offense goes through me, there's no question about that, or something along those lines.
Right. Yeah.
Which is like straight little green hand.
Yeah.
Like a desperate attempt to drum up some drama between two guys who don't seem to have any.
Yeah, and it was kind of a failed attempt because when I read that, I was like, that sounds fair. He's awesome. The dude is so good at basketball. He's a top 10 player. Sure. I was like, there's nothing controversial about that. But what I was worried about most is, do you think Joe has lost a little bit of his like joy in the way he interacts on social media? But it seems like he's been kind of bummed for a little while, man. Are we ever going to see old Joe back?
I thought he had a period this season where he was seemingly kind of glum.
Yeah.
Then he returned, but then he got injured, and then you had the whole COVID thing, and I don't know. I think he did have some up and downs this season. He's someone who is very emotive and wears his feelings on his sleeve.
Yeah, man.
And even that quote is like kind of annoying to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't find it something that I should take seriously as viewing as a rift between him and like Ben Simmons. It's just more of like, who cares, dude? Oh, I wanted my teammates. I need to carry the offense. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You're a member of a team.
Yeah. I mean, we all know what he means. He basically is saying code for like, I want it enough. Trust me. If my teammates need him, I'll do it.
Yes. I mean, he's saying I have the ability. He's shouldering responsibility, which is like a sweet move for him to take. But I'm also like, you don't need to do that, man. You don't need to like fall into the game of Barkley and Shaq and their bullshit. Yeah. You don't need to say I'm going to dominate. You don't need to do that, dude. We're over that. That's boomer poison shit.
And I agree, man. And I think I'm especially sensitive to it now with like monument talk, masks. And I'm like, we kind of figured this out in sports years and years ago that certain people would talk about things just to incite and like, exactly. We do not need to talk about this. This is not interesting to me. And there is so many other things that are fascinating. Like, what is this burger bubble? What kind of burgers will be there? Are they double patties or triple patties? Is there a salad? I want to know all these things. I don't want to know, like, if an offense goes through a player. Like, we'll find out. We'll watch the games. And while that is valid sports content, I just have to start not caring about so much because like my attention is so low that I'm just like, I just cannot care about this tiny green hand feeding me all these nuggets.
I just can't care about basketball. I just don't care. I like talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I like thinking about it. I like watching highlights.
Yeah.
Like hearing from these guys, seeing that they're okay. I just don't care about basketball. You know, people on Twitter, arguments about, you know, being performatively concerned about the NBA so they can say, I told you so if it gets canceled. Like, I don't understand any of that shit. You guys are too far up your own ass. You know, like, I don't get that. My thing is just, why now? Why? Yeah. Why right now? It just doesn't, the timeline does not make any sense at all.
What team just shut down their entire practice space? Like,
the Bucks did, the Kings did, the Nuggets did.
Not good. Not
well, I
good.
just don't get it.
Yeah.
I just do not get it. Why the insistence on doing this right now?
Especially since Florida is not having the greatest numbers this month, like possibly the worst that they've had. And it's in Orlando. And, you know, like, okay, to be totally honest, like, I would love to see these games. It's dangerous. It's racist. We shouldn't put these people in harm's way. When that tip-off goes down, I will be watching with a degree of joy, right? And I cannot lie about that. But I agree. Why now? We should figure something else out. The horse didn't work, but like we always say, like, have the lottery, have the draft. I don't know, like, or do nothing. You know, like, that's always an option. Do nothing.
I think what bothers me the most is the NBA trying to pretend that they care about these players, that they care.
Or the world in general.
About the world in general. Yeah. All that stuff. Just everything they do is so flimsy. And, like, yes, it's about the money, and you want the money now. That's what this is. You can't wait to get your money. It's 30 billionaires who can't wait a couple months because they want to get their money. They want to make sure they don't lose money. Billionaires. That's what this is about, and we all know it, and everybody knows it, and the players know it, and the owners know it, and the media knows it, and the fans know it, and then people say, oh, it'll be good for the country. It'll raise awareness on issues. No, man. Stop doing the lip service.
Yeah. Although there's a truth to that, but it's not worth it. The price is not worth it. When the pro-burger bubble people come out and say, this will help our collective conscience, like, there's not a full lie there. I think it is something that is valuable to us, but I don't think it's worth it. And not to totally put myself into the sin bin here, but I kind of wanted to bring this up. There's this football player, a wonderful football player named Pat Mahomes. He's young. He just signed a $500 million contract for 10 years. And it kind of set off your predictable chain of reactions on Twitter, which is like, why should anyone get paid that much money for throwing a ball, playing a game? He's not fighting for a country. He's not a teacher. He's not a politician. He's not affecting lives. And I'm like, for sure he is. He is the spice of our life, right? Like, he might be the greatest football player ever. There's a good chance. He won the Super Bowl last year. The dude is incredible. I think he's underpaid. And I think the thing with the burger bubble in the NBA is we look at these millionaire players, and I think they're all underpaid. But the power structure is not what we're paying attention to. We're saying, like, why does LeBron James have $1 billion? I'm like, well, he should have 3. Look up more. Look at the DeVosses, right? Like, look at the owners. Look at the Gilberts. Dan Gilbert, I think, does real estate and gives out loans. And those are all valuable American things, but, like, to that doesn't sound more important than playing a game.
No, but Dan Gilbert is not a valuable American loan guy either.
Quicken Loans, you know, wasn't one of the bad ones, you know? Like, I was trying to figure out if they were part of the crash, and of course everyone was part of the crash, but he did things, as far as I can tell, on the internet through haters. Like, people don't really get at him for that. But, like, and I think loans are important. Like, people people can go to school. It's tough, right? Ooh, I want to talk about the Harvard thing. There's no time, man. But what we're talking about with this burger bubble is, I think, like, what you care about bubbles up to the surface, bubbles up from the bubble a little bit. And if you want to talk about, like, how much these owners make, which is what I think me and you kind of bristle against, you know?
Well, kind of what you were saying before when you talk about Pat Mahomes. Well, obviously we know that contract will never be played out and paid out.
A lot of it's guaranteed. I believe like 477 is.
I'm saying he's getting guaranteed money off of it, but I just mean a 10-year contract in football is.
It's symbolic.
Exactly. Yeah. But what I was going to go to was that, well, what is this team then that has the money to pay him that? And who are they? And who is the owner that's making
exactly
his share of this money? For what? For owning the team? He can't throw a football.
Yeah.
Like, why does he get anything? A billionaire who decided to invest in a sports team should be getting incredible amounts of money off that team? Disagree.
Well, I think
I think the players getting half in the NBA, it's just obscene. It's just obscene.
They have to split a half.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just obscene.
Yeah.
The fact that the owners get half the money in the NBA is outrageous.
I was very looking forward to Big Baller Brand, and if LaMelo becomes a star, hopefully we'll get that dialogue back, because they were trying to undermine something like a system, and it could have worked, and it was a good idea, and someone's going to eventually do it. I love the shoe industry, and I love everything about it, and I'm not well versed in the economics of it, but I love the idea of a disruptor. And I think, like, if there's any chance for the players to disrupt the NBA, this might be the opportunity. But slowly what we're seeing is players want to play because they're good at playing basketball, and they don't necessarily want to get involved in politics.
Well, I look at it to an extent of the NBA making it plain who they are, but it was something we already knew. But that facade of the NBA being more benevolent than other leagues because they were a little bit cagier, because they had to account for a different demographic audience that's than, say, college sports or football.
Dude, they are head over heels above football, above MLB. I like the NBA and what they're doing. They're bound by all this weird conservative money, and they do pretty good, man. I'm into it. I'm psyched that we're NBA fans, because baseball, football, and college sports, like, that's not pretty
I
stuff.
agree, and I was and have been enthusiastic about the NBA in a way that I haven't been about those organizations. And this whole moment in general has given me, I think, a bit of pause in the way that it had to look at this and say, you have essentially 30 billionaires forcing a 75% black league to go back to work.
Crazy. It's crazy.
To go back to work.
It's
30
wild.
billionaires. This isn't an industry. It's 30 billionaires.
I don't know.
You know, this isn't... Look, throughout America, the urge to get people back to work is only based on the fact that our government is in cahoots with corporations. So our government doesn't want to pay the people, so they want to boot them off of unemployment while the companies want to get back to making money.
Yeah.
So, like, this is even kind of worse, though, because it's a whole bunch of rich dudes who just want to make more money again. There's not even a reason. They just want more money. They're already billionaires. They could write off this season and be good.
And
Like what are they doing? What is even the point? You are already billionaires. You can live the rest of your life in splendor, in castles. Why are you forcing the league to play?
I mean, this is gonna get stony, but this is why I think, like, my whole idea about Phase 2 is impossible. Like, not doing in Phase 2 is impossible, because fire up the bong, fire up Super Smash Brothers. We're going back to college. I think that, like, human beings need purpose. And as soon as you take purpose away from someone's life, we will shrivel and die. And of course, these billionaires make so much money, and these players make a decent living. Like they can survive. Most of them can survive this year with a collective bargaining agreement. But the idea of having a purpose, and they're basketball geniuses, and they want to express that genius. It's why there's cave paintings, you know. And I think human beings are compelled to do stuff. And I think the NBA is a business, but what they're doing is a deeply human act, and I cannot be mad at that framing of it. These players want to express themselves by doing the thing that they're best at the world at doing, and these owners were like, "We enjoy this so much. We want to make this happen."
I have not heard that enthusiasm from players. I have not heard that at all.
I've heard it from a few. I mean, your boy.
The majority
Austin
of
Rivers,
guys who have discussed it have not been gung ho. I just have not seen that. I've seen most players being reticent and saying, "Look, I'm down to do this for my city, for my teammates. I don't want to let people down. Don't want to let the fans down."
But this is exactly my point.
Very few people are saying.
But that's my point. Like Embiid in his quote being like, "I don't like this," but to paraphrase him, he's like, "This is my duty, and this is what I do.
But that's
I'm compelled
bullshit,
to fulfill
though.
my." No, he says it right, and I have to believe him because he says it and he's going to do it.
I'm not saying he doesn't believe that. I'm saying this is them being bullied. This is them being manipulated. He's like, "I'm not comfortable with this. I don't like it, but I don't want to let down my team. I don't want to let down my city." Those are artificial things. Those are things that are created by his environment. That's not about him saying, "I just want to go play basketball because I want to be a basketball player." That's him saying, "I'm duty bound because I'm a member of this group." There's no expression of joy there.
There's a solidarity there that doesn't. It's not a smile, but there's an expression of a type of joy. Like you told me a story that was awesome. You know, there's no hoops in New York right now, but they're coming back. And you said you saw some kid on the street with a basketball, and you screamed out and you asked him if the hoops were back. That feeling of going out there and seeing if there's a hoop there with a basketball is like deeply human, right?
I just have a sour taste in my mouth from the entire thing. It really, really has, I think, laid bare who the owners are. And we always knew it, but I think that illusion has just vaporized, like sun hitting the morning fog.
Yeah. I mean, we all know this feeling, like seeing
It's like, cool, I hate you. I didn't want to, but here we are.
Like someone sitting in your seat, like that feeling. It's just like this subtle kind of like, it's not a good feeling. And we all know what that feels like. And this is what the Burger Bubble and the Checkers Challenge feels like. Like, this is great. We're still at Thanksgiving. Everyone's cool, but someone sat in my seat and they know it bothers me. And this is, it's going to ruin my night, and or calling shotguns, simple things like that. And the Burger Bubble is a minor but loud infraction.
Not crazy about it, gotta say. Well, glad we got more Burger Bubble conversation in.
Is there more Checkers Challenge content that we can mine?
There's nothing. Nothing at all.
I mean, we've been doing a pod like a pod about nothing. I mean, there has been no games for so long, and then we're on the precipice of games, but we still don't want it, right? We can talk about other stuff indefinitely. Like, let these guys chill.
I don't know
forever.
who wants basketball except the owners wanting their money. I don't think anyone actually wants basketball.
That shit's going to be fire, though. Everyone's going to watch it.
Maybe.
That thing is going to dominate our
But that's
feeds.
why the NBA is just so horny for this, because they saw The Last Dance and they're like, "Oh, we're going to be the only pro sports league in America broadcasting live games right now."
Well, MLB did a 60-game season. They haven't announced a schedule.
When's that start?
Pretty soon. They're warming up. They're already together practicing. And I mean, Sean Doolittle had a quote being like, "Sports is the reward for a functioning society." and we're not functioning, so we should
Yeah,
not be
that's-
here.
I think that's a reasonable way of looking at it.
Yeah, he's correct. That I agree with that too, and yeah, we don't deserve this yet. Our politicians and White House have to get in line, and then maybe we can have sports.
But you will deserve another episode of Cookies.
A
That will
perfect.
Even more perfect episode.
Wow. Well, this one was certainly the perfect pod, but next time maybe
We'll get the glitches out.
I love cookies.
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.